Clint Eastwood walked into the high-end watch store, the soft chime of the bell ringing above him as he opened the door. The polished glass display cases gleamed with expensive watches, each more intricate and luxurious than the last. Clint wasn't in a rush. He had a few hours to spare, and he had always admired watches, especially their craftsmanship. He wasn't interested in the flashy, overpriced models that screamed for attention. What he wanted was something subtle, refined, something that would last. As he approached the counter, a young saleswoman no older than 25 looked up from her tablet, immediately noticing the distinguished man in front of her. She smiled, a polite smile, but there was a hint of skepticism in her eyes. She had seen celebrities and wealthy individuals walk in and out of the store before, but Clint Eastwood, despite his legendary status, was just another customer to her. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you today?" she asked, her tone friendly but slightly dismissive. Clint smiled back, his usual calm demeanor never wavering. "I'm looking for something classic, a good reliable timepiece." The saleswoman raised an eyebrow, glancing at Clint's attire, a simple button-up shirt and jeans. "Well, we have many options. I'm sure you'll find something that suits your style," she said, her voice carrying the faintest hint of sarcasm. "Are you sure you're ready to make such a big investment?" The remark stung, but Clint didn't let it show. He simply nodded. "I've been around long enough to know what I'm looking for," he said quietly. The saleswoman, sensing a chance to show off her expertise, led Clint to the most expensive section of the store. "These are some of our top models," she said with a smile, though there was still a touch of condescension in her voice. "Only a select few can afford these, but I'm sure someone like you," she paused briefly, "would appreciate the luxury." Clint, ever patient, glanced over the selection, but nothing caught his eye. He wasn't interested in extravagance. He was looking for something timeless, something that spoke to the art of watchmaking. The saleswoman, now clearly thinking she had him pegged, continued to talk about the high-end watches in a way that made Clint feel like a lesser customer. "This one," she said, pointing to a gold-plated model that gleamed under the lights, "is truly a statement piece, perfect for someone who wants to be noticed." Clint felt his irritation begin to rise, but he didn't let it show. He smiled faintly and shook his head. "I'm not looking for something that screams for attention," he said. The saleswoman laughed softly, almost in disbelief. "Well, I'm sure you'll be impressed with our selection, though. We don't get many people who buy these kinds of watches unless they have the right kind of status." Clint's eyes narrowed slightly, not at the watch but at the judgment in her tone. He had enough of the subtle mockery. "I just want a good watch," he repeated, his voice firm now. "I don't need anyone to tell me what's good for me." The saleswoman, sensing she had said too much, smiled awkwardly and turned to show him a few more pieces, but Clint could feel the tension rising between them. Clint's patience was wearing thin, but he remained composed as the saleswoman led him to another display case. He was beginning to wonder whether he should simply leave, but something inside him told him to hold on. Maybe there was a reason for this interaction. The saleswoman, now fully engrossed in her pitch, picked up an elaborate silver watch with a bright face. "This is the newest model," she said, her voice dripping with pride. "It's cutting-edge technology combined with classic design. Only the top 1% can afford this, but I'm sure you'll appreciate it." Clint glanced at the watch, unimpressed by its flashy design. "I'm not interested in the top 1%, he said, his tone direct but calm. "I'm looking for something meaningful, something that represents craftsmanship, not just status." The saleswoman smirked slightly, her judgment now more apparent. "Well, it's a big decision. I mean, we're talking about a watch that costs more than most people's cars. Are you sure you're ready for something like this?" Clint stood silent for a moment, then looked at her directly, his gaze unwavering. He had been through more in his life than most people would ever experience, and the last thing he needed was to be judged for wanting something as simple as a good watch. "You'd be surprised," he said softly. "Some people don't wear things to show off, but because they appreciate the beauty of what's behind it. The saleswoman, clearly oblivious to the deeper meaning in his words, shrugged dismissively and walked away. But Clint's calm response had struck a chord with her. She hadn't expected such a thoughtful answer from someone she had initially dismissed. As Clint continued to browse, the saleswoman, still thinking she had the situation under control, came back to him with another watch. This one was simple, elegant, and understated, just the kind of piece Clint had been looking for. He could tell it wasn't the most expensive option in the store, but it radiated a kind of quiet sophistication that spoke to him. "This one," she said, holding it up for him to see. "It's a classic, but it doesn't have the modern flair of the others. It's not exactly in right now, but I suppose it might suit someone who likes things that are a little simpler." Clint took the watch from her hand, his fingers brushing against the cool metal. He studied it for a moment, noting the fine craftsmanship. "Actually," Clint said, his voice steady, "this is exactly what I'm looking for." The saleswoman's eyes widened slightly, clearly not expecting him to choose this particular piece. "Are you sure?" she asked, the disbelief apparent in her voice. Clint smiled, his expression softening. "Yes, I've always preferred quality over trends. And I'm not looking for something to impress others, I'm looking for something that lasts, something that's timeless." The saleswoman hesitated for a moment before she nodded, still caught off guard. "I see," she said, her tone now shifting, more respectful. "I didn't realize you were looking for something like this." Clint held the watch in his hands for another moment before glancing up at her. "It's not about what's fashionable. It's about finding what resonates with you. A good watch should feel like a part of you, not just a decoration." Gao. Saleswoman stood there for a moment, a quiet realization dawning on her. Clint's words had struck a chord with her. She had assumed, based on his fame and reputation, that he would want something extravagant, something that shouted his status. But Clint wasn't concerned with status. He was concerned with the simple value of quality and craftsmanship. She had judged him based on her own assumptions, and now she saw how wrong she had been. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her tone sincere. "I misjudged you. I didn't realize you were looking for something with this much meaning behind it." Clint, noticing her shift in demeanor, gave a small smile. "No need to apologize," he said gently. "We all make assumptions sometimes, but it's important to remember that what's valuable to one person might not be the same for someone else." The saleswoman nodded, humbled by his response. She had been quick to judge, but Clint had shown her that sometimes it's not the flashy things that matter. It's the things that hold true meaning, the things that stand the test of time. "Thank you for your patience," she said, a little quieter now. Clint gave her a reassuring nod. "It's all about understanding each other, right?" he said, his voice calm. "You've got to appreciate the things that matter, not just what the world tells you to value." The saleswoman, now visibly humbled, stepped back to complete the purchase. Clint, sensing that she was genuinely learning something in the moment, decided to offer her one final piece of advice. "Look," Clint said, his voice warm but firm. "In this world, a lot of people get caught up in appearances, in the rush to impress others. But true value, true character comes from within. A good watch, like a good person, isn't defined by the flashiness or the price tag. It's defined by what it stands for and the story it carries with it." The saleswoman looked at him, her eyes reflecting a deep appreciation. "Thank you," she said softly. "That's something I'll never forget. I've learned a lot today." Clint smiled, not in a patronizing way, but as one who had simply shared something meaningful with another person. As he paid for the watch, he could see the shift in her attitude. She wasn't just selling a product now. She was starting to understand that every customer had their own story, their own reasons for making choices. As Clint stood up to leave, he turned to her one last time. "Take your time with people, listen to them. You'll be surprised at how much more meaningful the interactions will be." The saleswoman nodded, her eyes sincere. "I will, Mr. Eastwood. Thank you." Clint gave her a final nod, walked out of the store, and disappeared into the world outside. Months later, The fan looked back on that fateful encounter with Clint Eastwood in the shopping district, and he felt a deep sense of gratitude. It wasn't just the advice Clint had given him in that moment. It was the way Clint had shown him through his own actions the power of respect and self-discipline. That lesson had stuck with him and had slowly become a guiding principle in his life. He had learned to approach others with a sense of humility, to never assume that his admiration for someone entitled him to special treatment or access. Every interaction became an opportunity for him to practice what he had learned. Whether he was meeting a celebrity, speaking to a stranger, or working with colleagues, the lessons Clint had imparted that day stayed with him. One evening, while walking through a park, the fan passed by a street performer playing a guitar. Instead of rushing up, demanding a photo or selfie as he might have before, he simply stopped, took in the performance, and threw a few bills into the performer's tip jar, silently showing his respect for their craft. It wasn't about seeking attention. It was about respecting others' boundaries, their time, and their talent. Clint's words had shifted something inside him, something that wasn't just about how to approach celebrities, but about how to approach life itself. Respect wasn't something to be demanded, it was something to be given freely. And so, as he continued through his life, the fan carried Clint Eastwood's lesson with him, knowing that every small act of respect created a ripple effect, spreading kindness and understanding wherever it went. Please subscribe to the channel for Clint Eastwood respect. Thanks.